Yes, here it is, Marcellus Sports Shooting Stars. We bring the game to you. And right now, man, I can't wait to tell you about this. The four-star Penn Charter guard, made hoops alum, Jake West, will announce what D1 program he's going to. It's all going down Tuesday, October 15th at 6:30. But right now, I got a special guest with you, Coach Brandon Williams, Penn Charter boys basketball coach. Coach, thank you so much, man, for jumping on the line with me here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Wow, man, how excited are you? First of all, I've known and I read that from your AAU program that you coached and won a national title to coaching now on the big level in Philadelphia at Penn Charter. You've helped develop over 20 D1 prospects. Talk a little bit about Jake West and how special this young man is.
Jake, man, is a kid that, I smile when I talk about a lot just because he is a kid that not only proved a lot of scout writers and coaches wrong, but he proved me wrong, right? You know what I mean? When I first met him, when he was just getting into ninth grade, he was small in stature, wasn't really quick, but one thing you could see about him was that he loved to play the game and that he had an IQ for the game, right? And I think those two things are very, very key when it comes down to developing a high level basketball player. And ultimately, he ended up hitting a growth spurt, got a pop of athleticism, but he just was a gym rat, man. So I think Jake is very unique in the sense of, like you said, obviously I've coached a number of Division I prospects.
Yeah.
He's very unique in the fact that, he didn't just have it, right? He had to kind of really fight and scrap and really dedicate himself to competing against himself every day to really develop into what you see today. So no, I mean I think Jake is a special kid in that sense of when it comes to the guys that I've coached, and that his journey is a little bit different, but ultimately it's a great story, man.
That's for sure. And I read a lot about you, and I've seen that you excelled obviously at high school, Abington Friends. Is that correct?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And then you guys won at the Kangaroos. You won the FSL title. Then you went to Chestnut Hill College, 1,000 point scorer yourself. And I read that you were top five in 14 different statistical categories for Chestnut Hill. How is that even possible? I didn't know they had 14 different. So you know what well-rounded is. And my friends say I'm well-rounded, but that's kind of my I need to go on a diet. But anyway, man, you've seen all this. Talk about like what have you told Jake when it comes to like next level? Like what tips have you given him?
Again, man, like I said, Jake, from the time that I met him at 14 to the time that we reconnected 2 years ago when he transferred into the program, he had, improved his game leaps and bounds, right? So a lot of the basketball things, Jake kind of already checked those boxes, right? It's from a skill set standpoint, shooting, ball handling, passing, those things he could already do. I think a lot of where me and Jake have our conversations are usually going to be centered around mentality, right? We're very big in just the approach, right? You know what I mean? In high school and in college, I was a lead guard as well. So we have a really, really good synergy. Just the fact that, the lead guard is the coach on the floor, right? So I talked to Jake a lot about being that, a lot about his leadership, and a lot about his mentality, right? I think in this day and age, basketball has become an extremely popular sport. A lot more people are playing it. They're getting instruction really early. So, what separates you as you go further and further along in this game starts to become the non-basketball things, right? So I think, the biggest thing that I've probably given to Jake at this point has really just been mentality, how to be a leader, and then most important, like you said, just being well-rounded, right? You know what I mean? I think I've obviously been able to do that as a player myself. But I think all the best players have the ability to affect winning in different ways, right? It doesn't always show up on the stat sheet, and I think that's probably my biggest,
Yeah.
uh, I guess you could say, line of advice to Jake is that when you're a lead guard, you're like a quarterback, you're like a pitcher, you control the outcome in a number of different ways that may not always affect the scoreboard.
Yeah, well said. What are the goals for this coming season?
So obviously, we was able to check off one of our goals last year, which was win our league outright. The Interacademic League is one of the oldest varsity sports league in the country, right? You have a lot of these schools that are in our league that were founded in the 1600s. So at the end of the day, it was definitely a feather in our cap to league outright for the first time in 20 years last year. The way the Interact works, and it's somewhat similar to kind of what the York Adams League does as well, but they have a round robin, but we don't have playoffs. So at the
Oh,
end of the day, the league champion is determined by your regular season record. So it,
gotcha.
it, it makes pretty much our 10-game season a grind and a gauntlet. So you have some years where you can finish tied. So coming into my first year last year as head coach, Penn Charter had tied the previous 2 years for a share of the championship. But last year we were able to win it outright for the first time in 20 years. So I
Wow.
think that was cool. I think this year goals are going to be to repeat as outright champions. I think that with us bringing back our full starting five, all those guys being seniors, I want to kind of take it up a notch and have us not only win it outright but go undefeated through the regular season schedule, 10-0. And then obviously to win the school's first private school state championship in basketball.
Wow. Well, I know we were rapping a little bit earlier, and you're very familiar with this York Adams League. We talked about, obviously Sports Shooting Stars owner Dew Jones, his son RB Brown, Junior. I call him Sub Zero, but man, talk a little bit about the Central squad.
Yeah, nah, man. Those guys were really, really fun to watch. Obviously, I coached Greg Gittinger for his 16U, 17U AAU time.
Wow.
And ultimately, I'm as much as a fan of anybody in this game, right? And I think the one thing I lost with becoming a high school coach was that I was no longer able to go to high school games as much as I did, right?
Yeah.
One thing that all of my former players will tell you that played for me on the AAU side is I love getting out and supporting. You know what I mean? So watching that squad, just the leaps that they took, throughout Greg's career, right? I obviously recruited Greg to Penn Charter when he was a sophomore. I know he missed a lot of the games his sophomore year due to a really bad ankle injury. So I think they missed out on all playoffs his sophomore year. I don't think they made the county or even states. Whereas then his junior year, he gets a full season. They really gel together. They mesh together. They have a nice run. They win the county. But obviously they get tripped up in the states, and then kind of coming back his senior year, it was one of those things where I told him, I said, I think you guys are favored to win states. I said, everybody has their picks, but I kind of knew just with that nucleus of guys, not only because they were talented, right? Obviously, Greg, Division I guy. I mean, you got some other Division I guys in Ben Real and Ben Natal. They had a lot of really good key pieces, right? Saxton was just one of the more elite athletes in the
Yeah.
area, right? Lockdown defender. So I kind of knew that would compete for the championship, not just because they were talented, but because they had just so long to kind of gel, right? I think chemistry is everything. Last year with Penn Charter, we had Jake coming in as a junior transfer, Matt Gilhool coming in as a junior transfer, Jamal Hicks was a junior transfer. So we had a lot of firepower, but we didn't have a lot of familiarity, right? And one thing about basketball, it's a team sport, and you can tell when you got five guys on the floor that are just meeting each other, right? Whereas with that central squad, those guys had been putting in work for a very, very long time, right? So, it was one of those things where they had the talent, they had the chemistry. Obviously, coach did a fantastic job, but ultimately, I thought that their togetherness and just them being through so much helped them really regroup after getting tripped up in districts, right?
Yeah.
I think like any other team that you can kind of face that with, where you go back to back on the county, you riding high going into districts, and then you lose first game out the shoot. I think teams that may have not been as experienced, may have not played as many games together, can kind of start pointing fingers, right? But for that group to kind of really lock in, get back, make it into states, and then make that run, it was special, man. And I was just happy I was there to watch it along the way. And then obviously I had my seat in the Giant Center when
Nice.
they finished it off.
Dude, I just got a little goosebumps right there. Yeah, my dad took me way back in the day, right around like, I don't even remember, they been like 89, 90 to watch York Catholic win the state championship at the Giant Center. And here it was, X amount of years later, I have my son, and we're sitting in the Giant Center, and the home squad Central wins. Man, it just was magical. But yeah, it just hats off to you, coach, because obviously I read about you and your love of high school basketball, and that was like the one thing that you kind of didn't want about this job is you're not going to be able to go to all the games, but you definitely got your finger, your paws, still on not only Pennsylvania but beyond, and it's showing, man, right off your first year, with the title already. But hats off, man. Best of luck. I will definitely see you at the announcement, man. It's all going down. Ooh, I can't believe it. We got Northwestern, Coastal Carolina, VCU, Charlotte, and of course Florida are the last five. Coach, did you already put your did you put your pennies in? Like, which way do you want this thing to fall? What program do you want him to?
I'm again, man, I'm a basketball purist. I think everything that is great in basketball happens because of fit, right? So I think, like you said, a number of great schools, great staffs, right? All of those schools had tremendous staffs that showed Jake a lot of love. And when they would call me and ask me kind of, what I was thinking that, would tip Jake one way or another, it was always fit. You know what I mean? Jake is a competitor. Jake loves to win, right? And at the end of the day, Jake wants to be somewhere that values winning, right? That values playing the game the right way. So I think ultimately, it's always about fit and more so, competitive culture, right? So I think whatever school has kind of given Jake, the best fit and ultimately the best opportunity to come in and affect their competitive culture, that's where you're going, see him playing his college ball.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be part of this if it wasn't for Made Hoops. Uh, Talk a little bit about Made Hoops and what you've seen them do for Jake and other national ranked players.
Nah, I mean, Made is a great platform. Ultimately, I think, Made side of the fence, right? The grassroots side, the high school side. That was kind of why I started coaching, right? Was to be able to affect kids' lives, right? By injecting some mentorship and just some guidance through high school basketball. I was able to, like you said, go to Abington Friends, which changed my life. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not met my AAU coach, right? And so ultimately, when I graduated and I was getting into the work field, it was one of those things where I was just like, you know what, I want to, you know, give that back to at least one kid, right? If I could do it for one kid, I felt like, that I paid my dues and now I'm sitting here almost 12, 13 years later, right? And I think, May kind of really embodies, that culture, right? Being able to bring coasts together, right? I mean, they're all over the country. They have events outside of the country. I was talking to Jeff Coven, he was in Canada. I think they do a great job of providing a platform. And I think ultimately when it comes to just what you have with a lot of the youth, not many kids get to see outside of their purview, right? I think, kids have the opportunity through Made and through the various tournaments, camps, to not only travel and see the country, see the rest of the world, but they get to interact with kids all over the country. They get to interact with coaches all over the country. They get to interact with high level athletes and really understand what it takes if you want to be somebody that is going to affect this game on a national basis, right? I think the biggest thing that you can give to a kid is to A, give him a dream, and then B, give him a actual roadmap on how to accomplish that dream. And I think Made does a really good job in mixing in, events and camps and also the social media aspect of it. I think obviously basketball has changed a lot. Athletics has changed a lot. And you got to have the social media component just due to the fact that that's how you can touch more people, right? You can get more of a widespread approach. And I think those guys, Chad Babel and those guys, since they touched down and started really putting the muscle behind it, it's been a great platform. Penn has benefited from it. We played in a number of their spring events. We're coming up and playing in their Jordan Holiday Classic for a second year in a row. And then even as a member of Philly Pride coaching staff, I played in a number of their events. I knew if I wanted to get my team ready to play on the circuit, that was where I needed to be.
Well, man, well said. I'm excited to see you out there. It's going down Tuesday, October 15th, 6:30. Who's it gonna be? What school? Jake West, you talk about social media, over 1.5 million subscribers or followers. Definitely a sensation, and everything, talking to his dad, talking to the coach. Seems like a great young man as well. Make sure you follow Made Hoops on YouTube. You don't want to miss this. Coach Brandon Williams, thank you so much for your time.
Marcellus, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, man. Sports Shooting Stars.
We bring the game to you. Contact us, sportsshootingstars@gmail.com.